Greetings and salutations, everyone, and welcome to the Mel Blackwell Experience on this January 29th, the year of our Lord 2026. Want to get started today with one of my favorite actors, just I think a great man and an incredible actor, Denzel Washington.
If you dress sharp, they'll laugh and say you're showing off. If you dress plain, they'll whisper that you're broke. If you speak your mind, they'll call you arrogant. If you stay quiet, they'll call you weak. If you succeed, they'll say you got lucky. If you fail, they'll say you didn't try. Work too hard, they'll warn you to slow down. Rest for a moment, they'll say you've lost your drive. If you love openly, they'll call you naive. If you protect your heart, they'll say you're cold. Stand firm, you're stubborn. Bend a little, you're weak. The truth is this: no matter what you do, people will judge. They don't see your struggles, your late nights, your sacrifices. They only see what fits their story. One day you're too much, the next you're not enough. And if you keep chasing their approval, you'll never find peace. So stop running after applause. Stop living in the noise of their voices. Focus on your path, your peace, your growth, because in the end, their opinions won't build your future. Your actions will.
Wow. Strong, isn't it? You may have seen that on Instagram and floating around out there. It's a great point that he makes there. Today, what we want to focus on today from a business best practice standpoint takes that into account somewhat. But I want to look at one of the greatest influencers of my life, and how did I get into culture? How did I get into best practice, and why I think that is a very noble best practice for us to take on here today. So what Denzel was talking about there is interesting, isn't like they. Who are they? You know, we talk about they all the time. There's definitely an us and a them. And in business that happens too. And of course, out there in the world of politics, you know, there's the one side says they're the bad guys, and the other side says, well, they're the bad guys. And so when Denzel is talking about they, I just think he's talking about this world, right, where there's just so much criticism that's being offered. And he ends his advice there to focus on action. And so I think being a man or a woman of action in business and in life is really important. And so this brings me to my literally my favorite person. There aren't very many people in business that I think about probably every week, but Art Williams is one of them. And if you don't like Art Williams, you may not like this episode, but I can't imagine why you wouldn't. He was such a force, but he taught me when I was watching Art, to go back in time. I'm 18 years old. I'm out of high school. I'm not really sure exactly what I want to do. I'm kind of piddling around going to college at night. You know, maybe I'm 19. And I'm introduced to Art Williams. And here's this guy coming across a satellite TV network. He's basically figured out, remember how you have the one common, you know, one mission shared by all, but then you have that shared language, that very effective way of communicating. He had this satellite, the big satellites like you had in your backyard, you know, that look, they're like the size of trampolines, the big white ones, you know, and you had to go out there and crank them and point them at the right satellite. And so he had a satellite network, and he was beaming that all over the place, people all over America. And he was just so inspirational and motivational. So I want to listen to him. And what we're looking at in business best practice before we start the first clip of Art is that people, especially those in the entrepreneurial operating system, EOS, the big goal is traction. So if you think about traction, it's leverage, and it's making sure that your business is running smoothly and all wheels grab the ground, and you're able to accomplish what you are setting out to do efficiently, and you're able to do it in a way that's healthy. You do it in a way that's open and honest and truthful. You're developing and growing people. So that's traction. You may have a definition of traction. That's my definition of traction, where your business is really operating on all cylinders. Everybody's on the same page. Everybody's effectively using the language in the business. Everybody's on our side of the rope. You're doing all those different things. But people spend tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, millions of dollars to implement EOS, not necessarily just EOS, but what they're doing to try to get their business to gain traction. An EOS operating system is the round wheel. It's the roundest wheel I've ever found. It's amazing. But almost everybody that I know that's utilizing EOS is still struggling to get traction. And the reason why is it's kind of like the elusive, it's like defying gravity. I mean, you can have it and you can lose it. You can have it and some of your best people leave and you have to go back and rebuild it. So it's not something that you attain and you hang up your cleats. It's an ever-ending slog. When you're done, somebody else has to come in and take over and slog it out. And so I believe that traction actually isn't something that you get from your business. It's something that you embed in your business. And I believe that is the real focus of my new book, Uncommon Sense, the fight to fix your workplace culture in the Wild West of business. It's Uncommon Sense. And it makes a lot of sense to me once I went back and looked at, okay, what did I do? How did I do it? Because to write a book about what you did to try to help other people do it, you almost have to get outside yourself, because I didn't have a script. I didn't necessarily know why I was doing it. I didn't even know what I did. I just went and did it. But when I really came back to it and said, what was it? I always went to culture. Culture was the biggest bang for the buck. Culture was the way to move every single metric positively in the business at one time. So we talked about that last week to kick off 2026, but I want to keep that going because people are looking at, what do I do to get traction? How do I get traction? Well, we'll do this. We'll implement that. We'll do this. The truth is, the way you get traction is you have to embed it into your culture, and it's one person at a time that becomes a bunch of people, that becomes a bunch of teams, that becomes everybody. And that's traction. Traction really is everybody doing what they're supposed to be doing together, rowing the same direction, very much focused on where you're going, very much focused on the how journey and bought in, very much focused on their role and supporting each other, being their best self. So that best pledge that I love, that is, I think, phenomenal, that the best pledge and getting the best out of every person, because you can't get best practice out of people being their worst self. So traction is something that you need to look at getting embedded into your culture. Things like, we start doing our job at goal. Okay, that sounds hard, but it is a cultural item. It is so important that people understand, if you want to succeed here, we define success as you start doing your job at goal. So, hey, man, I'm so proud I did, I was 88% last month in my goal. Well, you did 88% of your job. And that doesn't have to be mean, but it just has to be, okay, so what can we do now? Number one, do you accept that your job is 100%? Because if you don't accept that, we're done. But if you accept that, yeah, I've got to get to 100%, okay, well, let's work on how we can get you there together. And so that's what we do. But how did I get some of these thoughts in my head? A lot of it was impressed upon me by Art Williams, and I just really loved the man. And I want to listen to a couple of clips, and I hope you'll enjoy them. Just enjoy them. I mean, this is a different time and place. 1987. This is, I've cut it into multiple snippets, and it's not the whole speech, but it's the highlights. He's speaking to the Religious Broadcasters Convention in 1987. And, he was kind of he'd say a few cuss words, old football coach from Georgia, and he's very country, but check him out. This is just, let's enjoy Art Williams.
The key to winning in these United States is what's inside a person. It's your integrity. It's your people abilities. It's your character. I believe in developing this winning edge. I've got 10 or 12 points that I won't be able to go over with you tonight, but let me just give you a flavor of what I think you got to do to succeed in these United States. Number one, you got to get excited.
That's right.
Folks, I don't believe anybody will ever tell you anything more important than this in winning in these United States. 90+% of winning in anything you try to do in America today, you got to be excited. Mm-hmm. People in America won't follow or believe in a negative, dull, disillusioned, frustrated dadgum crybaby. People want people that are positive and excited and enthusiastic and tough. Woo. The greatest, listen, the greatest definition I ever heard, I thought about this 10 million times when I wanted to quit along the way of a winner. This guy said almost everybody in America can stay excited for 2 or 3 months. A few people can stay excited for 2 or 3 years. But a winner will stay excited for 30 years or ever how long it takes to win. Another key to building this winning edge and this mental toughness is you got to become a dreamer again. You know, I'm a Methodist, and we just changed ministers a few weeks ago, and our new minister came in, and the church was just packed. And the first thing he said, well, it looks like everybody came out to see the monkey perform. And the second thing out of his mouth, he said, for a church to be a great church, you got to have a dream. If you don't have a dream, you're dead. And boy, I sat up and I said, man, me and this guy are going to get along good because he knows what he's talking about. See, folks, I believe in order to win, you got to feel good about yourself. Wow. Well, you know what? Folks, if you want to win in the free enterprise system in America today, you got to stand for something. And another point, thank you, is yes, you're going to be controversial. Folks, if you want to win in these United States today, just get ready. You're going to be controversial. The only way not to be controversial is to be average and ordinary. They just call me anything but average and ordinary. Now, I know some of you might say, well, you know, I don't think I like Art Williams. You know, he sounds like an old tough butt to me. Well, folks, I'm telling you, you can be good and tough at the same time. I bet nobody's ever talked to a religious broadcaster like that.
Man, I just love him. So you can see some of that, you know, what's interesting in your, so look, as a business leader, you're a shepherd. And then up under you, you have sub-shepherds that report to you. And then under them, they have some shepherds that report to them. So as you look down that organizational chart, that accountability chart, everybody in the leadership role is a shepherd in my mindset, the way I would like to run a culture, the way I would advise you guys to run a culture, because this is how traction forms. But people resonate with like-minded ideas, even folks that look, when Art talks like that, there are certain people that are real high flyers. There's Michael Jordan's on the team and Scottie Pippen's, and then there's other guys that aren't quite as dominant, but it takes the whole team. So, you know, it's interesting when somebody talks tough like that. It really is old tough, but, you know, an old ball coach, and he's laying it out like that. You know, it can overwhelm people. You know, it can blow people away. So part of your job as a shepherd is, if you have a messenger like Art, you can soften. You don't want to get on the other side of the rope from him. You don't want to change the message. Remember, it's the Tower of Babel. The power there is in a unified, that we've got our minds set together on the same thing, and we have such a unified and effective language. So you can't hijack either of those two things. You can't hijack the message and change it up, even if you want to. You shouldn't, and you can't make the message muddy so that people can't. Your job is to make it very clear and to be effective, and that's the beginning of traction, is to align everybody on exactly what we're doing, and everybody's on board with our destination and where we're going. And then it's like, okay, now here's how we're going to do it. So that's the subvision, and there's a whole nother subvision there that can get people excited, because you can get real excited about going to the moon, but you give up hope if you realize you're around a bunch of people that can't get you there. It's called a pipe dream. We've all got those people in our lives. Some of them are relatives, or some of us have bet on them and they've let us down, where they're really BS. They're just dreamers, and they don't have any, all they have is a vision of a destination. They don't have any way to get there, and they're not really committed and serious. They're not achievers. And so I love listening to Art there. How this translates to your business, and we'll keep going with him, is think about that. You have to believe in yourself. So this is important. When I talk about the selves, teams kind of hierarchy of how you move people into best practice, how you can take a company from people doing pretty good, mediocre people, to having entire teams, the entire company rocking and rolling at excellence. It literally is every single person. Every person matters. And so when we go through, you know, it's interesting, when I was writing Uncommon Sense, there is a hierarchy of how, a chronology of how you would do some of this stuff, right? You don't want to go into a real sick culture and introduce, if you're not wrecking, you're not riding, because, okay, you just created, 5 alarm wrecks all over an already sick business. You don't want to roll out the best pledge before you clear the town of the bandits and the snakes and the scorpions. You don't want to go walk around and say, hey, I see you have a sign on your chest that says make me feel special, to somebody who wants to destroy you and your business and doesn't want to get on your side of the rope. So there's a simple chronology for how you would do these things, but it's all of these things happening in the appropriate order and getting buy-in from the top first, all the way down, and then all the way back up. And then you start removing problem worship. You start eliminating like worst practices like drive-by meetings, and you start putting things in place that make sense, and you start saying, hey, we care about our people. We want people to take vacations. We want to be there for our people if they're going through a hard time type thing. And so a lot of that comes from Art, and you can hear that. And so as I'm writing the book, I just keep hearing him in my head, and it's like, wow, I can't believe how transformational this man was to a young, kid who I had no chance. It's so funny. I'll tell you guys a quick story. So I was so excited about A.L. Williams. I just thought, man, I can do everything that Art's talking about. Well, it was such an illogical. I could totally get on board with the destination vision of what Art was trying to do, buy term and invest the difference, basically. But I couldn't get on with the how because I was 18. I couldn't even 19. I couldn't even get a securities license. And so it was an incredible learning experience for me to see how culture can create traction. He was able to create moms and pops, truck drivers, preachers, plumbers, white collar, blue collar guys around a kitchen table who took on the big ivory towers of big cash value whole life insurance policies, which were terrible investments. Mixing life insurance with investments, it didn't always make the most sense the way the insurance companies were doing it. They were and they were, in my opinion, taking advantage of the American public. And Art went in there and said, hey, we're going to buy term and invest the difference. And all of a sudden you've got moms and pops out there that are both insurance licensed and Securities Exchange Commission licensed, selling insurance and securities. I mean, it's just illogical as it can be. And for me, it wasn't. God was like, nah, this ain't going to happen for you right now. You're too young. You not even old enough to get a securities license. But man, did I learn a lot. But let's listen to him on this next segment that he goes on and continues.
But see, folks, if you want to win in business, everything's not going to work out like you want it to, but you got to be committed. I want to have great kids. I want to have a wonderful relationship. I want to have tremendous grandbabies. Another key in building this winning edge in business is you've got to learn to treat people good. Another things that these universities pollute America corporations with is this attitude: you better not get to know your employees. You better not become friends or get to know the spouse or the children of your employees, because you might have to fire them, you might have to reassign them. And if you're close friends, you can't manage people in a tough-minded way. Bull. Folks, the only way to manage people and get the most out of people is treat them good. Learn to love them and care about them. Yes, it hurts from time to time, but it's the only way. Everybody you work with in business, you got to look at them and pretend there's a flashing sign on their chest. And everybody's asking you, make me feel special. Make me feel important. Say something good to me. I want to be somebody. Another key of winning in business in America today is, folks, you got to establish the right kind of priorities. First company I went with 15 years ago was ITT. When I was out there struggling, dying every day, wanting to quit and go back in coaching 1,000 times, my first heroes in this business were vice presidents at ITT making $40,000 or $50,000 a year. And I said, man, if I could ever get to be that kind of person, it'd be a dream come true. I couldn't want any more out of life. A few years later, I earned the right to get promotions to that level and found so many of my heroes in business, their personal lives were a disaster. They were alcoholics and divorced 3 and 4 and 5 times. I just read an article by the author of In Search of Excellence, and I saw where he says, I can't find evidence of any successful business person in America that's not tunnel vision, that just doesn't give everything to business. Folks, I said back then, 15 years ago, that if that's the price you've got to pay to win in business, it's not worth it. 15 years later, a multimillionaire. Folks, I can stand and preach to you that you can't separate your personal life from your business life. God's got to come first. Your family's got to come second. and business has got to come third. And I believe if you have a lousy spiritual life and a lousy personal life, long range, it's going to be devastating to your business. The first step to winning in business in America today is you've got to make a total commitment. Total commitment gives you that little extra ounce of courage you need to fight back through the tough times. Winning in business demands the same kind of commitment that winning in marriage demands. You know, I fell in love with my wife in the 2nd grade. Only girlfriend I ever had. We ran off and got married our freshman year, had both of our children before we left college. We're true business partners in marriage. We go everywhere together. I spend more time with her, been married to her 26 years, now got 2 grandbabies, love her more today than I ever have. But I don't like her all the time. There's a bunch of times every day that I don't like her. You know, I'm a nut about brushing my teeth. You know, if I can get the toothbrush, I'll brush my teeth 4, 5, 6 times a day. And Angela's always forgetting everything, you know. And she always leaves the cap off the toothpaste, you know. And when I go in there to brush my teeth, the cap's off. It's got that hard little crust around the edge. You know, it just burns me more than I can tell you, you know. And I get on Angela's nerves about a lot of things. You know, we were having dinner last week, and every time we get through, Angela kicks me under the table, you know, and gets me back in my room and says, "Art, you ain't got no class." You know, I wish, Art, you could learn to eat with your mouth closed, you know.
Man. All right, let's dissect that. Can you hear some things in there that shaped me? You know, I mean, you can't just listen to Art Williams and then just go transform your culture. I mean, this impressed upon me before I ever went to college. I had to accept I probably wouldn't be a multimillionaire following Art Williams because of my age, not being able to embrace the whole program. I mean, you know, I looked 13 when I was 18. So, you know, I could walk up to somebody and go, "Hey, I'd like to talk to you about, you know, my term invest the difference." And they're like, "Get out of here, kid." And so, but he impressed upon me. God was so good to me because he gave me this cultural icon. I mean, this person that he everything he's talking about is culture. And it is the fastest way to transform your business for the positive. And remember, he's talking to the people about betterment. Believe in yourself, right? You got to try. You know, you got to show up and give it what you got. And then he talks about just some of the good old granddaddy ethics, things that you forget, and then you get to business. He talks about how he had looked up to all these people that he wanted to be like, and then he realized after working for them, not that they were bad to him or that they had necessarily done anything terrible. He didn't really go into that, but they were a shell of themselves at the end of their working career. They had lost what mattered most. Their families were in disarray. They probably were unhealthy. And so he's planting the seed amongst people that you matter. And like he said, you know, you have a sign on your chest that says, "Make me feel special." And so that's such a fantastic thing to be able to say to people, "Hey, you know, you have a sign on your chest that says, 'Make me feel special.' Let's talk about that." So these are all such great cultural things. And so as I wrote Uncommon Sense, which, by the way, comes out on March 3rd, you can go to Amazon now and it's there. You can buy the Kindle book pre-sale, but it's not going to deliver till March 3rd. So just hold off. But come March 3rd, you know, I would like everybody, please go buy a copy of my book. Please leave a good review. Those two things mean the world to me because that's how that algorithm works at Amazon, and it'll be available at multiple different locations, but Barnes and Noble, Amazon, etc. But that would really help me. But I'll talk more about that as we get close. But March 3rd is the big day. You'll be able to order them. They'll ship. And it is a really good book. I mean, I've had to read it 4, 5, 6 times, and it's kind of surreal to read it because it's just a very, very, very unique book, and it goes directly to, I learned a lot because I screwed up a lot. I learned a lot because I was thrown into situations where I had no clue what to do. And so everybody's looking to me for a decision, and I harkened back to these cultural elements of, you know what? Let's try to be the best people we can. Let's do the best work that we've done. Hey, you know, people here matter. Let's don't hire wrong people so that we can care about them. Let's don't take good people and leave them out there with a bunch of, bad leaders. Let's take being a shepherd for real. Let's take care of things. So all of these things that have gone into doing what I do to try to transform cultures have culminated into this amazing book called Uncommon Sense. And I'm humbled by it, but I am also very proud of it because I can go back and say, thank you, God. I can go back and say, thank you, Art Williams. I can go back and say, thank you to Gwen and the kids and, just my upbringing, grandparents, et cetera. My mom, it's just phenomenal to be at a point where you're able to do that. But what I want to show you guys today is that somebody like Art Williams, when you hear him speak, be humble, be prayerful, step back and look at this and go, wow, everything he's talking about is transformational culture, getting the right people, being tough, not letting people cop out. He had a section, I took it out of here, where he would try to tempt it. When he was a football coach, he would, and this was back when you could paddle people, right? He would paddle players if anybody said can't, like cannot, can't, I can't, that they'd get paddled. And he said after just a few weeks of the start of football practice, you couldn't play a word game with anybody on that team to get them to say, I can't. And that's culture, y'all. That's culture. And so when we talk about culture, eat strategy for breakfast, when we talk about, hey, what can I do to have a more enjoyable work experience? What can I do to be a better place to work for my team? What can I do to have real traction? What can I do to make it not so hard at work where I've got the slope of my treadmill cranked up on rock climb? What can we do to remove obstacles for our people? Because that's their number one job if you're a shepherd. What can we do that people know that we care and we're doing our best, and that when we fall short, we all are there for each other because we take care of things and we've got the right people in the right seats. And one of the most important things, and we'll listen to this next segment with A.O. Williams, with Art Williams, but one might say, okay, Mel, I hear all that, but what do I have to do first if I want to transform a culture? That's an easy one. You have to make sure your town is safe. And so when I wrote this Uncommon Sense, it is in the jargon of the Wild West, right? And so imagine that you do have your Wild West town, and let's say you're saying, well, we really want to improve things around here. Well, the first thing you've got to do is get the bandits, you got to get control of your town. You've got to make sure that you don't have some rogue element coming through there and raping and pillaging and stealing and creating havoc. So in your business, that's what you have to look at first, is say, I need to make sure I've got everybody on my side of the rope. Now, if you haven't set a good vision, if you haven't made an effort to have one vision shared by all, you got to do that too, because people aren't going to get on your side of the rope till they know where you're taking them. And then I believe very strongly one of the elements that people miss out on traction, where they don't get enough traction. They're getting traction, but it's not EOS's fault. EOS works. It's the roundest wheel I know. But there is a subvision of how I'm going to get you there that is the 100% requirement of those leaders, from the C-suite all the way down to the last supervisor you have in the building. As leaders, as shepherds, we're responsible for how we're going to get there, the how journey. The destination is the vision everybody focuses on, but how are you going to get me there? And so that how we're going to get there is how you start defining what you need to do. And obviously, so you've got to get the town free of rattlesnakes, bandits, scorpions, anybody that's against you on the other side of the rope, that's not going to pull, that's going to try to disrupt the language, that's not going to be 100% with you. Get them out of your business, for you and for everybody that works for you. Then you have to structure your business right. You have to make sure your business is structured not around the people, but around the business and what the roles are that you need, as lean as you can be, but not too lean. And then you get the right people in the right seats, and you make sure everybody understands you've taken care of things and you're the right person. And you have a sign on your chest that says "Make you feel special," and I honor it and I see it. And oh, by the way, let's talk about the best pledge. Okay, now I'm starting to build one heck of a culture when I've done all those things, and then we can do transformational things to try to implement. And there's tons of tools in EOS that you can use, and I've got tons of tools. But that's what you do. That's how you get it going. And a lot of that, I think, was put in my heart and in my mind by Art Williams back when I was just a young little whippersnapper. But let's listen to this this last segment on Art. This is probably the most famous part of this speech, but I just think it's fantastic. Enjoy Art Williams.
Another thing in building this winning attitude in business. I see tall people make it big in business and short people, dumb people and smart people, fat people and skinny people. But if you cut open the winners in business, I see a heart of a champion. And all these people are competitors and they don't quit. I believe desire and will to win is everything. I don't know why I'm like I am, but my butt's always burning. There's always something say, Art, dadgummit, you're supposed to go for it. Art, dadgummit, you're supposed to be somebody. You're supposed to make a difference with your life. What does the $500,000 a year person do? The $50,000 a year person doesn't do. You look at the outside and study those two individuals, everything seems to be the same. They both are the same sex, they both are the same age, they have the same training, the same positions, the same contract, the same fringe benefits. They both are successful, they work hard, they're good family people, make tough commitments. But what's the difference? What does the $500,000 a year person do? The $50,000 a year person doesn't do. He pays the price and a little bit more. He works hard and a little bit more. He's loyal to the company and a little bit more. He believes in a little bit more. He makes money and a little bit more. He saves money and a little bit more. If you want to win in these United States, you got to be tough and you can't quit. The last thing I'll talk to you about today in building this winning edge is, folks, if you want to win in business, you got to be a leader. Leadership is everything. You show me anything in these United States that win, I'll show you a leader at work. You show me a successful church, Boy Scout troop, club, football team, business, I'll show you something run by a leader. Mm-hmm. See, I thought at one time in my life you had to be smart to win. I used to have these smart people that dress so pretty and talk so pretty and use these big words. They just intimidated me. And I said, Art, you can't ever be that good. Why don't you just throw in the towel and go on back and coach football for a living? And I found two things out about smart people. I think it's almost impossible for a smart person to win in business in America today. Because I find smart people spend their whole lifetime figuring things out. They're always trying to figure out an easier way and a quicker way. And another thing I found out about smart people is they just don't get around to doing nothing. And see, somebody like Art Williams, everybody said, well, he can't do it. And somebody like that can't do it. But he does it. See, folks, I want you to know almost everybody in America almost does enough to win. They almost get there. They almost are over the hump. They almost have it going. They almost in everything they do, almost is a way of life to almost everybody in America. But the winners do it. Right. What do? They do whatever it takes to get the job done. They do it and do it and do it and do it and do it until the job gets done. And then they talk about how great it is to be somebody they're proud of. We need leaders in America who can do it. If you want to become somebody, do it. If you want to go in business for yourself, do it. If you want to become financially independent, do it. I hear too much talk in these United States. Everybody can talk a good game. We need people in America who can do it. I go all over this country with A.L. Williams, and I have people say, Art, you can count on me. Wonderful. Just do it. Art, I guarantee you this is my last stop. I'm going to win now. Super duper. Just do it. Art, if I could just have one good month and get the ball going, I know I could make it big. Super. Just do it. Art, if I could just pay off this debt, I could really go. Great. Just do it. Art, if I could just sell my house. Do it. But houses ain't selling. Do it anyway. Art, I'm not making any money. What can I do? You just do it. Do what, Art? You do it and do it and do it. Art, I guarantee I'm going to win this contest. Super duper. Just do it. Art, I'm over the hump now. Watch my smoke. Great. Just do it. Art, I want to make it so bad I can taste it. What I do? You just do it. Art, I'm a vice president now. Can I quit doing it? No. Art, I don't know if I can keep on keeping on. I'm really hurting. What I do? You just do it. Do what, Art? You do it and do it and do it. Art, all my life I've wanted to be somebody important. Well, what do it then? Art, I'm going to save money so I don't have to go through this again. Great. Just do it. Art, I don't feel like I've had enough training. What I do? You just do it. Art, my manager don't give me no help. What I do? You just do it. Art, you don't understand. I was Mr. Everything at my former company. You don't mean I have to start off down at the bottom and do it, do you? Yep, you really got to do it. Art, Art, what's the primary difference between winners and losers? The winners do it. They do it and do it and do it and do it until the job gets done. And then they talk about how great it is to finally have achieved something unique and how glad they are that they didn't quit like everybody else and how wonderful it is to finally be somebody they're proud of and make a difference with their life. Thank you.
Oh, man. I could listen to it all the time. I hope you enjoy that. You're like, hey, go, Mel, you just played 17 minutes of Art Williams. Well, you're welcome. I think it's fantastic. You know, he makes so many good points. And of course, you know, you get to the end and it's grating, you know, do it. And you just do it and you do it. But man, what a great point. What a great point. Remember, this is an old, you know, South Georgia football coach who ended up creating a multi-billion-dollar insurance empire. You talking about going into the lion's den where the money is with the elite of the elite country club guys, and here he is, broken old Southern English, and builds this empire of blue-collar people and he did. I mean, A.L. Williams became one of the biggest and most successful American insurance companies of all time, and it's just such an amazing story. And he did all of this through its culture. He understood how to build teams. He understood that, you know, what's just football. You know, we just got a high school football team, but it was everything to those kids at that time. It was everything to those parents. It was everything to that school. It was everything to the cheerleaders. And he just really took it seriously. And then he had this vision and this dream of being able to build this insurance company that cared more about people. And so, you know, all of his detractors, we started out with Denzel Washington, how they are going to say, you know, they're going to criticize you. I mean, Art had tremendous criticism. I mean, they tried everything they could to discredit him. But, you know, the proof's in the pudding, and you look at what happened, and it was fantastic. But, you know, that's just so wonderful for us in running our businesses, whether it's the business of church that you have, whether it's a daycare center, hopefully not a Somalian one. Well, good for you if it is, because you probably have a lot of money. And then, you know, you have the ability for nonprofits, for small businesses, large businesses, the whole nine yards. The business culture is everything. And, you know, if that's debatable, I'm happy to debate that with somebody, because, you know, two things can be true at the same time, but a business lives in that culture. And that culture can increase and improve and or decrease and make worse all of your important metrics in your business. And so I think that's just amazing. And so I hope you find that interesting. I hope that's very helpful. You know, I want to segue into the culture of what's going on in America. And to your surprise, I'm not going to go all that deep into the politics of things this week, because, I mean, surely you can see, you know, what I do look out there is when we talk about what we talked about earlier, who are they? And I don't think it takes a genius when we go back to, you know, kind of the feel, the hear, and the see hierarchy of understanding, right? There are a lot of feelings out there, what's going on in and around, say, a Minnesota. There's a lot of feelings out there, what's going on in and around ICE. There's a lot of feelings out there, what's going on with whether or not ICE should be doing what they're doing in the state of Minnesota or in Minneapolis or wherever the heck they are. And all of these feelings are very easily manipulated. And so the number one thing I want people to understand today on the Mel Blackwell Experience is, who are they? Okay. There is a they out there that has been behind the destruction of sovereign nations, particularly America, but we're falling slower than a lot of these European nations, Canada, Australia, New Zealand. We're holding stronger because of the Make America Great Again movement, but also just because of what we have. We have a Constitution. We have a First and Second Amendment. A lot of folks don't realize you just don't have those things in Europe. You don't have them anywhere like we have them here in America. And so far they're holding. The pillars are standing. But they out there have been after them for quite some time. As we look at what they have been up to, let's just go through some facts, okay? Step back with me. Let's get higher up. Let's look down. Let's get away from all these feelings. And let's just look at some facts. It is maniacally ingenious to flood the American homeland with a bunch of third world, immigrants, illegal immigrants. If you remember during the entire Biden administration, regardless of your politics, I just want you to remember these facts. Whether or not the TV channels you were watching were showing the tens and thousands, hundreds of thousands, millions of people I think tens of millions, 18 to 25 million people rolling across our border, coming in through every port, coming across Canada, coming across the southern border, coming in through these different schemes and scams of, well, these are asylum seekers or whatever. Okay, whatever. But they bring in 18 to 25 million guys. Come on, that's a lot of people. And then they shove them into the heartland of America all over. And they give these people welfare benefits. They 100% go on the dole. And then they end up voting. In many cases, if not all, there's, along with that, a lot of cheating going on in and around the voting apparatus of America. Okay? There is. And so you have all of that going on. Put that in the bank. Just paint that picture and set it aside, okay? And now when we talk about, okay, well, now we need to get these illegal immigrants out of the country, okay? What I need you guys to understand, and most of you do probably, but what we all need to understand is you don't have a choice. If you let these 20 to 25 million, plus you have millions that had come in prior to that hadn't been removed. You had people overstaying their visas. So this 20 plus million population, they're anchor babies, so they're pulling in other millions will be coming behind them. And we don't have the infrastructure to be able to support that. So if you look at America like a lifeboat, if you say you have a lifeboat, there's only so much dead weight you can put in a boat before it takes out everybody in it. So we don't have a choice. But they knew what they were doing. They just held their nose and told you, no, it's not. Nah, it's not that many. No, we're not bringing all these people in. Oh, no, these are just asylum seekers. These are just moms and dads and kids. I mean, there's been so much horror in and around the flooding of sovereign nations of Europe and America. It's sad. And so so those are facts. And then you say, all right, let's look at the religions of these people. Well, you have a lot of Islamists, radical, Quran-toting, truly believing the Muhammad, attack on anybody who's not Islamic. So that element is there. And then now let's talk about corruption. So now you have all of these people in the country, and it's incredibly corrupt. They're running scheme after scheme after scheme. You have this entire network of non-government organizations that are, if you remember the numbers, I mean, trillions and trillions, 10 or 12 trillion dollars in budget annually that these NGOs that are involved in these migration, immigrant flooding of sovereign nations, that's the budget every year. And America's the great big prize. So I say all that just for us to understand they have this vision of flooding the sovereignty of our nations, and then they have this mechanism of fraud where they use the same NGO networks. It's money laundering. It's layer after layer. And in the end, guys, who these people are is they're thieves. They're dishonest thieves. And many of these thieves are Republicans in our government, state, local, federal government. They're Democrats in our state, local, and federal government. They are thieves. They are fraudulent, dishonest thieves, and they're robbing us blind. And, the frog that's boiling in the water, the scary part about the frog boiling in the water is if you're that frog, you don't know you're boiling. And so you're sitting over here watching it, but, let's say you can see, but you can't communicate with the frog. There's no way you can tell the frog, hey, dude, you're boiling. But you just have to sit there and watch it. It's a terrible thing to watch because you're like, maybe he'll just hop now. And by the time the frog has any inclination, it's too late and he's dead. And so there's an old saying that something leaves you wanting, okay? The old timers would talk about want, W-A-N-T, like it want, basically meaning that you did not have enough. And so there comes a point where you're in such a state of want okay, that obviously you could say a state of need. But the point is, these thieves are leaving us wanting to the point that we cannot survive in this boiling water, but we're not hopping out. There's not enough activity. We keep thinking that a politician's going to help us. There's so many of them that are in on this. I'm going to play a couple of clips, and you can see it too. But this is what I'm going to go back and say. So there is this they have this network of international money. They are this network of aristocrats from the days of old out of Europe with the American aristocrats that are just a chip off the old block. These are our betters. Remember, there's only 3 to 5% that have ever lived in human beings ever lived in a free, open government. And such a small percentage of that is lived in America. I mean, we are the shining city on the hill. We're the big prize for the bad guys. They are thieves. They're dishonest. They are fraudulent. And everything was a fraud. So when they flood us with a bunch of people from third world countries, that these people have nothing to offer America. Okay. Now, I'm not saying there aren't good Mexican people. There's good Mexican Americans that are citizens, and these are staunch, but we all know them. They're as good a people as you can meet, but they should come in legally. If you didn't come in legally, you came in class illegally, right? So you came in legally. Let's keep going. That's fine. But we have so many illegal immigrants here. The lifeboat is flooded, and these are not participating citizens. These are, a lot of them are violent and horrible criminals. So here's the interesting thing. They're leaving us in that we're the wanting frog. We're boiling, and we're down to the point where we have got to do something about this. They are fleecing us blind. There are billions and billions and trillions of dollars that are being bled out of what we do. And we pay taxes like, we're way past the need for a Boston Tea Party. I mean, come on. I mean, the Americans back then threw a fit over a tea tax, and we're getting taxed everywhere you turn, left, right, and center. So I thought you'd find that interesting. But be thinking about being left wanting, being left in a deficit, being left without enough to survive, being asked to fund and pay into a system that they are robbing you blind, destroying your sovereignty. Remember, we talked about the first thing you do in a business to try to instill the culture is you have to make sure the town is safe. You have to look around and make sure, okay, we're not going to spend our time fighting ourselves. We're not going to have people in power in this business that are actually pulling against us. Everybody on our side of the rope. And that is very difficult to do in America right now because they control these shysters, these fraudulent thieves, these dishonest deceivers, okay? They're taking freedom. They control the media. They lie. It's just unbelievable. I can't even believe it. You go back and listen to what the things Obama said about immigration, Bill Clinton said about it. Everybody that's run for anything for the history of America until Donald Trump. And now all of a sudden they are selling us complete garbage. Men and women's sports, transgender for everyone, like Trump says, which is hilarious. So let's listen to something. This is Tommy Tuberville, and Tommy's talking about fraud in D.C., and I like Tommy. Tommy's running for governor in Alabama. He was Auburn's football coach, and of course, he also coached at Texas Tech and Cincinnati. So, Ole Miss, he coached at Ole Miss before Auburn. So he's been around. But I tell you what, he's plain spoken, and I really believe he's a decent guy. And I think that what he has to say here is worth listening to. So let's check him out.
It'd be nice to see Congress do something about it. What do you recommend gets done? I mean, I think that the SAVE Act is a good starting point. Where do you stand on that, Senator? Do we have any hope of getting that passed?
No, we can't get that passed because you even have some Republicans that won't vote for it. We have to get this done. We will not win any more elections in terms of majorities if we don't pass the SAVE Act because they bring in all these illegals and they're going to try to get as many of them to vote as they can. Then they have all these voting machines that are all crooked, out of Venezuela, by the way. They have a system that they can win elections. We probably have a dozen or so people up here in the House and the Senate that were elected illegally. They shouldn't be here because things were crooked in the elections. Just look at Nevada and Arizona and all these places that it's been proven, but nobody does anything about it. But I'll go back to the money that is being stolen. If you go back to the first 6 months I was here back in 2000, the Democrats had the majority, House, Senate, and the White House, and they did this first, CARES Act. We need money for COVID, $2 trillion. Well, what'd they do with that money? They sent it to all the blue states to pay off their debts because they had stolen so much money they could not function. And we're talking about 30, 40 billion for California, 30, 40 billion for New York. Same thing for Chicago, the cities. I mean, it is a disaster. Folks, you are being stolen blind. Open your eyes. Don't listen to these people that want to bring this country to a communist country, because that's where we're headed. If we don't get to the bottom of this this nonsense of being able to steal something and nothing happened to them.
Man, can hear it in his voice, right? So he's been up there now for 6 years or 5 years. And he said some interesting stuff there. So he's talking about the SAVE Act, basically. And listen, why in the world would the boiling frog not look out and go, hey, let's go back to secure elections, not because they say they are, secure elections so that we know they are. So go back to paper ballots, same-day voting, and both sides ought to be able to watch to make sure neither side cheats. I mean, it's just simple. And so you've got to get away from mail-in ballots. You got to get away from these machines. These machines are they're made in Venezuela. They're finally proving it now in court that these things are cheating, that you're able to log in and manipulate votes with the machine. So come on, man. I mean, what is America if we can't vote? And if we had a true fair election, y'all, do you really think that there are more people out there that would vote for what this crazy stuff these communists are pushing? Because I don't. Now, I do think they brought in enough illegals, and they have ways to cheat, and they can do that. But if you could make it where you have to be a citizen to vote, that's what the SAVE Act says. You have to have same-day paper ballots, and you just remove these obvious. Remember how last week we talked about one of our best practice can be, hey, stop doing the 5 stupidest things you do. And I say stupidest on purpose because it rattles people, because it's not proper English, but it sticks, right? The 5 dumbest things sounds good. The 5 stupidest even sounds better. So this is one of those 5 stupidest things America needs to do. We just need to look up and go, hey, can we stop stupid? Can we just stop stupid right here? There's a stupid thing. Stop it. And let's knock 5 of these stupid things out before we boil like frogs. And so this keeps going. This keeps going with Tim Burchett out of Tennessee, who I think is fantastic. Now, he gets frustrated, and you can tell that he and Tommy both are decent guys. They're up there. They thought they could go into the Senate and maybe make a difference, and it's not happening. And they're frustrated. And so let's listen to what Tim says, because he makes a similar point.
Marjorie Taylor Greene had us in there in a building that was basically empty. That was the people that were supposed to be overseeing our real estate. And I asked the question, are members of Congress owning real estate? And the guys that are being rented to the federal government in Washington, D.C., and the guy said, yeah, they are. And it stopped right there. Nothing. And that should have been the beginning of it. And that's where I'm going to be a little different. I'm going to be on the front end of it. It's not going to be sexy, and hopefully the screaming will be back and forth, because that's just the nature of politics. But we're going to eliminate that, and we're going to eliminate the corruption that has infiltrated our committee system.
You are, as DOJ chairman, going to pick up the ball and continue the work when it comes to what seems like a massive scandal, which are big federal buildings owned by members of Congress that are leased out to the federal government. I mean, private buildings owned by members of Congress, leased back to the federal government.
Yeah.
And so that's like the snake eating its tail, right?
That is the tip of the iceberg. That just shows you my frustration with this thing. I mean, anywhere you look, we've got to not be the shotgun approach, because that's where we'll be neutralized. We got to focus in on just a few things. The first thing, I think we'll have something around IRS time. What's the big complaint with the IRS, outside of the fact they're stealing your money, is that you can't ever get to them. Their technology is not intermingled. I found out that through government duplication, I've got a chart. It's just the craziest looking thing. And it shows, and my staff has uncovered basically over $1 trillion of just simple duplication within these departments that nobody is willing to tackle. It's not sexy, but we're going to tackle it. And we're going to throw it to the American public. and hopefully they'll back us when we go to change the structure of government.
I swear, y'all. So you heard it, right? So how does that make you feel, when you hear that? And can you see what he's saying there? So let's break that down a little bit. So going back to Tuberville, he was saying he goes up there in 2020. There's all this money that's going to go out. This trillions of dollars is going to be paid out, $2 trillion to the states to help with quote unquote COVID relief. Well, it was a giant bailout. If you remember back then, a lot of folks don't, but if you remember back then, California was bankrupt. New York was bankrupt. Illinois, particularly in the city of Chicago, was bankrupt. So these were giant federal bailouts. Okay. So they bailed those states out. Now those states they were never held accountable for having blown all that money. And so they get even more money. Now the problem with all of that is they're not investing that money in the people. They're not doing wholesome, good shepherding, good stewards of the taxpayers' money. They're fleecing the place blind. They're literally, remember, they are the fraudsters, the thieves, the dishonest. They're robbing us blind. So they blew all that money. And so when the government spends money, they pay money to somebody. Well, that's a buy-off. And then on that side of the deal where I'm going to pay this company a bunch of money, maybe I have a way to get some money out of that deal too as the legislator, right? Or maybe as a lobbyist, I'm going to make money on the back end. There's all of this they're just robbing us blind. And then you go to what Tim was talking about. What he was saying was that you have people in the House and the Senate that own buildings in Washington, D.C., that rent them back to the government. Many of them sit empty. Many of them don't. All this is, y'all, is money laundering. And it's insane. And so they're all up there. So you get elected, you go into the club, and the club is screw Americans. Okay? So we can do that through these NGO networks. We can do that through immigration. We can do that through taxes. We can do that through, hey, let's invest all this money in this new fighter jet. Okay, well, there's guys peeling millions of dollars out of that contract on the back end. We have become corrupt, and we're a boiling frog. And then you hear about what Tim was talking about in just duplications. So this is big in business. Any of you guys running a business, this is another one. Go look for duplication in your business. Make sure you're not double paying a vendor, or that you're auditing your credit cards and those kind of things, that you're not paying things that you shouldn't. People aren't just sending you bills that you don't owe. You'd be surprised how much that happens in business. And that's why, as one of my best practices is bought right is half sold. Being the low cost, high quality provider, it burdens upon you that you have to buy right, that you have to drive every cost down that makes sense. No toilet paper management, but real costs. And when you buy right, you can look your team, you can look your partners, and you can look your customers in the eye and say, you're not overpaying for my quality, because I don't overpay for my quality. But my quality is high, and that doesn't mean my price is low. It just means you aren't overpaying. It's very powerful. You can't say that in America. The people that we elect into our cities and our counties and our states and our federal government are robbing us freaking blind. It's just insane, isn't it? And so Tim was talking about you have over $1 trillion at least. Remember, he's now the new chairman of the DOJ committee, but $1 trillion in just duplicate payments, meaning that you would save $1 trillion by not double paying something you only owed for once. Y'all, come on. I mean, we're going to look up. Now, as we look at what's going on in Minnesota, I'll give you my 10-second snippet. It's all designed. This is what they had in mind. The first thing they do is flood the zone with immigrants. Then they flood them into hotels and give them vouchers and food and all that kind of stuff. Then they create sanctuary cities where they can just wreak havoc on themselves and citizens and whoever lives within proximity of that person's carnage. They can just wreak havoc on society and be let back out. It'd be so easy to fix this. What's the one stupid thing that could stop the whole thing in Minnesota? You know it. I know it. It's real simple. The local police, the state patrol in Minnesota, all of your state and local law enforcement in the state of Minnesota and whatever cities, when they arrest someone that's on ICE's list, they turn them over to ICE in the jail. That's it. We're done. ICE doesn't need to be in there going door to door, anything like that. Now, if ICE wanted to go do a sweep and try to find every single illegal alien, mamas, children, grandmamas, etc., then yeah, that's going to be a different thing. But what ICE is sincerely trying to do right now is get these criminals off the street before they kill people. That's it. And so by the local police and the state police, they literally arrest these mongrels, okay, that are some of the most heinous people in the world, and they let them go. They're supposed to detain them in the jail and go, hey, this guy's on ISIS. So they call ICE and they say, hey, come get him. They go down there. Nobody even sees it. Everything's done in the jail. There's no chance of somebody getting shot or anything. They put that person, in a secure vehicle, and they take them off to wherever they go. That's how you could stop. That's not what they're going to do. They did all of this on purpose. They flooded the zone. They've got these people here. They're letting them go. They're a sanctuary city. They're a screw the federal government when they're not in charge of it. And this is designed to create chaos. And then there is no doubt in my mind what you're looking at is an organized communist front that you're seeing in Minnesota. It's just there. All you've got to do is look at the money. Look at the people behind it. Look at the organization. Look at what they're doing. Look at their tactics. They don't have to. They're not going to be held accountable for anything they're doing. And all the federal government has to do is slip up once, and all of us are just going to go, "Oh man, do we shoot another person?" It's just a natural consequence of going, "Oh no, we done shot another dude." But they've set it up to happen this way. This is their success. They did this on purpose. This is right on track with what they're doing. And what else happens to be occurring in the state of Minnesota and all over the cities in Minnesota at the exact same time all of this upheaval started up there? It's all the fraud. Is it okay with y'all if the state of Minnesota robs $20, $40, $60 billion from you and me? I mean, are we that dumb? Are we that boiling of a frog that we're like, oh, well, because they're stealing it everywhere. They're stealing it everywhere you look. They're robbing us blind. And I think it's just where you've kind of got to have a little Art Williams in you and just stand up and go, enough. This is low integrity. This isn't what we agree to as Americans. We don't want to put up with it. But, well, I hope that's helpful. I want to go out today. This is, I know, hopefully you guys remember John Lovitz. The young people may not. You may not recognize him, but he had a segment that he did that was really funny, and I think you'll find this funny. Check it out.
The following is a public service message from Pathological Liars Anonymous.
Hello, my name is Tommy Flanagan, and I'm a member of Pathological Liars Anonymous. In fact, I'm the president of that organization.
Yeah.
I didn't always lie. No, when I was a kid, I told the truth. But then one day I caught stealing money out of my mother's purse, and I lied. I told her it was homework, that my teacher told me to do it, and she got fired. Yeah, that's what happened. So after that, lying was easy for me. Lied about my age and joined the Army. I was 13 at the time. Yeah. I went to Vietnam, and I was injured catching a mortar shell in my teeth. And they made me a 3-star general. And then I got a job in journalism, writing for the National Geographic. Yeah. I was making $20,000 a month. In fact, I won the Pulitzer Prize that year. Yeah, that's a ticket. And then my cousin died, Joe Louis, and I took it hard. Maybe too hard. I tried to kill myself. Yeah, I did kill myself. Sure, I was medically dead for a week and a half. Yeah, and then it was a woman that brought me out of it. It was Indira Gandhi. Yeah, that's who it was. And she told me about Pathological Liars Anonymous. Oh, you'd be surprised how many famous people belong. Why, in fact, at one of the meetings I met my wife, Morgan Fairchild. Yes, I'm a changed man now, and it's all because of Pathological Liars Anonymous. Why, I even have my picture on the cover of Newsweek magazine. Yeah, every day.
Every day.
Yeah, that's a ticket. You bet it is. You can guarantee on that. I'm not kidding you.
Pathological Liars Anonymous. We care, and that's the truth.
Yeah, that's what it is. Well, look, I hope that's been a good episode. It's important when we're looking at our culture just remember, like Denzel Washington said, they are going to be telling you can't. They're going to be picking on you. They're going to be criticizing you. Who are they anyway? And then remember just the sheer force of nature that was Art Williams and how he could create a culture, and how as business leaders and shepherds, all of us that are leading businesses and all of our sub-shepherds, all of our leaders and supervisors, we really have to understand the greatest improvement in your business, the traction that you're going to get. Traction is built into your culture. It's not something you get out of your business. It's something you build into your business. And if you do that right, especially with what I've done with Uncommon Sense, which comes out March 3rd, put that on your calendar. I'll remind you about it. But it means a lot to me if you guys would buy some version of the book. You can buy it on Kindle. You can buy the audiobook. The audiobook will be come out about the 5th of March. It takes a couple extra days. But you'll be able to buy a hardback, a soft cover. You can buy through various different sources. But buy the book and give me a good review. That would mean the world to me. So one thing that you can do right now that does help me, if you would be so kind, if you go to Amazon and put in Uncommon Sense, The Fight to Fix Your Workplace Culture in the Wild West of Business. If you just put in Uncommon Sense, The Fight, it'll pull up my book. And I have an author page. You can follow me as an author. And then you can put a little heart, the like button there on the book prior to buying it. If you want to go ahead and buy the Kindle, you can, but it won't deliver to you until March the 3rd. So my advice is I'm going to make a push closer to March the 3rd so that people can actually order and get their books. And I'll probably run a pretty aggressive Kindle price after it launches. So you might save a little money if you wait till March 3rd anyway. But you can go to my follow me on the author page at Amazon under Mel Blackwell. And if you just go to, like I said, Uncommon Sense, The Fight, it'll pull up my book. And you can click the little heart there next to it for now. Build a little momentum. We really appreciate you guys joining me on the Mel Blackwell Experience. And remember, like Art says, if you want to do it, just do it.